Everyone loves a good success story, and that's what we're talking about today. All the way from Israel to America, from volleyball to real estate. Today, we're talking about a success story, and I know it's going to inspire you. Welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
Today, I'm excited to be talking to Alon Orbach. Alon has an incredible story, having immigrated from Israel as a young man, now living in Florida to study economics and to play volleyball. After completing his education, he began a career in property management, and he now leads the investment team at DesignedVR, managing a portfolio worth approximately $150 million in real estate properties. Today, I'm excited to learn from his journey and all the experience that he has in the marketplace. Alon, welcome.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and for sure.
Yeah. So just before we jump into what you're doing and we learn from kind of your experience in the marketplace, because you're managing some very expensive and very beautiful properties. But I want to know about your journey. I want to go back to the beginning. So understanding that you grew up in Israel, then you moved to the States 18 years ago.
Sure.
So just tell us a little bit about that journey, that decision. How did you, what were you dreaming and what was that like?
Yeah. So you ended up with the dreaming. So the dreaming part, I always dreamed big. I always wanted to do a lot of stuff. In Israel, I was in the army. After the army, I actually was a personal trainer, for fitness. And I started doing different stuff. I was also promoting for events. I also worked in the stock market. I was working nonstop. I had 3 jobs in one time, and I woke up 5 in the morning. I went to sleep midnight and, rested in between. And I always wanted to do more. Now, I grew up doing sport. I did sport all my life, and it's a huge part of my lifestyle. And I wanted to see, more what from Israel, United States is kind of the top of the top of the pyramid. And we always wanted to see, I always wanted to see what I can do more. And when I did all the work, I made decent income for someone that is, I didn't have a degree. I wasn't educated, but I worked really hard. I made okay money, and I wanted to do more. And I said, I play volleyball. I wanted to see if I can get a scholarship. I had my videos, and I wanted to send it to different coaches, around the United States. I got a few offers. I was actually supposed to end up in New York, and in New York, the school was in Manhattan. It was pretty expensive. Even if you get some sort of a scholarship, it was still very expensive. And I decided, I had a really good friend in Florida, and he said, you know what, you already got your school opportunity. Just leave volleyball, work here, and live in Florida. So I actually ended up quitting volleyball and just go to school full time. And I work here. I was still working on the side as a personal trainer. And I went with economics because I was always a numbers guy. I always wanted to see what really what is the world about? What is the economy about? How to combine between a few different aspects of businesses and to see what I can do. So I went to school. While I was in school, I met someone who was a really big developer. And he told me that the second I finish school, I can come work for him as a property manager. So I started managing. He had buildings, neighborhoods. I started managing those. It was around 300 properties. And from there, just, things grew. And then a lot of things changed. I always wanted to adjust with the market, basically, to see really what is the best opportunity. But that was really what brought me here. I always wanted to say, you know what, I always wanted to try United States, and I don't want in my life to be in a position that I said, you know what, I didn't try it. Like, I never tried something. So if I have a kind of like, if I'm setting my mind of something, I want to make sure that I'm trying it. And if I'm not succeeding, so I'm still happy that I tried, because I could always go back to Israel. I could always, go back to where I was. So that kind of like was the set of mind. And I said, I'll try it. If it works, great. If not, well, I have a degree.
Man,
So.
well, I love that story. And that's what I really loved about what you're doing. Not only just the career that you have, but the way that you ended up in your career. So I'm from the South. You probably can't tell that from my accent, but
There's no accent.
No
I
accent.
thought it's like Britain.
That's right. Yeah, we don't have the cool British accents. I would trade, or maybe Australian, something like that. But football is so big here, especially in the South. We have the SEC, and in our country. So to think volleyball is what brought you here to the U.S., and really volleyball is what brought you to the career that you have now.
In a way.
So,
Yes.
so kind of falling into property, this is something that it sounds like you sort of just fell into, essentially from an opportunity that presented itself. But I do want to know, because I want to know more about that, but I want to know the difference or the connection between the dream that you had of what it could be to come to the U.S., to experience, what you thought was going to happen versus what you actually experienced. Were there any specific struggles, or were there things that you thought, man, this is not what I anticipated, so maybe you had to adapt, or, what was it like making that shift for you?
So I'll take a step back regarding real estate. So I grew up into not a real estate like family, but my uncle is a contractor. My other uncle, like, my mom's side, my dad's side, like both of them were contractors. My dad was a contractor. Now my cousin is contractor. So like I grew up into this field of like, I didn't really, did it myself, but like in a way, I always knew that I want to do real estate. So I always had that set of mind that, I want to do real estate. Real estate is a huge subject. Like people think it's like, usually they're thinking about one thing and they say, okay, that's real estate, but real estate can be like 1,000 different, things.
Yeah.
So, I always wanted to do it. Now, you're asking it along the way, there were a lot of, I don't want to say breaking points, but there were a lot of really hard, like days, let's say, that I was I was struggling. It wasn't easy at all. And to me, it's still not easy, but we'll get to that as well. But, it's just like my mind, I never quit. So it's like, even when I'm really at the bottom, I'm still like very positive that that's gonna, like to me at the end, I know where I'm gonna be. So along the way, I have the ups and downs. And if I'm really down, then it's not a breaking point, but it's definitely making you think like, am I doing the right thing? Like, should I change something? Like, how can I adjust? When I was in school, I'm here by myself. So it was very expensive, to get everything with no student loans. I never, I never wanted to owe money to anybody. So without anything, there were times, I had to pay rent. There were no money for rent and food and stuff like that. So there were a lot of tough times along the way. And then after I finished school, so things started to be a little bit better. But even after school, I had to change a lot of things. So, from property management, I jumped into like other things, but everything led me to where I am today. So in a way, I never wanted to get away from real estate. But for sure, there are a lot of adjustments and a lot of like breaking points that makes you think if you're in the right path in real estate.
But amazingly, I mean, and I asked that about just sort of the struggles, because number one, I talk to people a lot who have a dream. They have something that they want to go after. Some people watching or listening today are thinking about something that they dreamed of doing, but for whatever reason, They talked themselves out of it. They didn't take the chance. They didn't take the risk. But you took the risk and the initiative not only to start your career, but to launch from another country, to come into a different culture, a different marketplace. You got your education. You worked hard. Amazingly, you did it as you paid for it as you went. If I'm understanding, no student loans. Is that right?
Yeah, no, no.
Wow. So that's completely different than most of the approaches that are taken here. So just the tenacity, the work ethic, the commitment, the drive that you have is really inspiring. I think that's awesome. I wish more people would just take the risk in the same way that you did. You mentioned, obviously, that you had a little background or at least understanding of property management, of building, of the whole market there. But you said that someone asked you to manage some properties. Were you anticipating that ask to happen, or is this something that surprised you? Tell us about that little. I think you said 300 different units.
Yeah,
that you
it was
managed?
about 300 properties. Part of them were neighborhoods, buildings. So the person that I met, I knew him for quite some time. He was actually an attorney. His family was he's very wealthy from New York. They have thousands of units there. And he wanted to get into real estate here. And he was very new to it as well, from like doing it independently. So he started buying, buildings, not like a house or a condo. And then just, I kind of knew that I'll end up doing something with him, but to me, even if it wasn't him, it would have been something else, somebody else, someone else, because I knew what I wanted to do. Now, I didn't know that property management is what I would want to do. I have a lot of offers now to manage a lot of properties, and I keep saying no because I don't miss that. To me, that's like the old days. I don't really miss it, but to me, it really helped me to develop who I am today, because property management is you're stepping into a lot of different fields. It's like how you talk to people, how you bring more clientels to rent the homes. You need to renovate them. You need to know the law. So it's like you end up jumping into the pool of a lot of different fields. And I think then you start deciding like what is really the field that you want to focus on. Some people are doing great in property management, but in a way, it's limiting yourself because, there's only so much you can really manage. So yeah, you can create a big management company, but to me, that's not really what I wanted to do. So now it took me a long time, to kind of like really figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
And
Well, you said something that I think is interesting in that, and you're talking about kind of crafting your career, where you were going, learning along the way. And you said that in some of those things that you experienced, they're lessons that you learned, right?
Of course.
And that helped craft and build what you're doing today. So in managing all of those units, you mentioned, that there's just different things that come with that. So how different? So you get from managing units to now you're managing really large rental properties. And what attributed to that shift? Is that the market? Is that opportunity?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So what took you to that?
The market definitely is a huge impact. Definitely. So after I managed all those properties, I still had other stuff going on. I also had other businesses. I also lived in California for a year and a half. I did some stuff there as well. When I went back to Florida, I got into, again, property management, but like smaller amounts, like around 80 units. But I got much more involved into like the renovation side, the real estate side, meaning like renting, selling, purchasing. I got much more involved in that field, and we were working mostly with long-term investors that wanted to buy a property and rent it for the year. So I knew I'm a very good numbers guy. If I see something, like I know exactly what it should make. And we were making to our investors around 8%. They were very happy with the 8%. And the market started shifting. The prices started going up. The rents went up, but not as much. And then with the property tax, the insurance, those units were not, you couldn't buy stuff for 8% anymore. Now you could buy in different states. You could buy in bad areas and probably still make those returns. But we were really focusing on decent areas, like mid-class that are, people are really good there. The economy is pretty good. And you couldn't buy those anymore. And then I said, well, what am I doing now? That's kind of like was the shifting point that then I got to meet Shachar. Shachar is he's actually the owner of DesignedVR. He created it at the beginning, and he kind of jumped into it by, I guess, luck, which is, it's funny because he had the celebrity owner of a house that he wanted to sell the house. The house didn't sell. And he said, well, there is this platform, Airbnb, that was a long time ago. There is this platform, let's rent the house there until, we're going to sell the house. And the house started making great return. And then they're like, there is something here. That's how pretty much this all things started. And then I kind of got into it with him about, the real estate side of it. He's more into the the management company and everything, because I'm not really involved so much within the management itself. It's a lot of headache. I'm really focusing on more like the development, the purchasing, the real estate side, let's say.
Yeah.
But the transition to me was a must because I always wanted to work with people. I always wanted to work with investors. And to me, what was the best product I can offer them? And the long term was not there anymore. So the next thing was basically, the short term market, which we're, again, numbers, like I meet so many different people across the board that are doing it. And they, you can talk to 20 people that are doing it, and 20 people will give you different aspects of what they think are the right numbers, what they think. And we have a software that we developed as well. I'm not going to get into the software side because, it's a whole different subject. But basically the software, we have analytics of a lot of properties, hotel, motels, single families, condos, and we know exactly like what are the expenses, what are the returns. There are so many small variables that can change you like 2% a year, and that changed the whole number. So people that said, oh, I'll make like, 9%, and then they end up making like, 5%.
Yeah.
And that 5%, if you're wrong in that, it's becoming like a loss, because then it's like such a small margin that in a second it can be that you owe money. There is also like the aspect of leveraging. So a lot of people that want to start, they say, oh, I saved like, let's say $100,000. I'll put like 20% down on the property. I'll buy some furniture and I'll rent it out like short term. And then you're getting into a position that you're really leveraging your money, which can be a good thing. But if you're really looking at it from a business aspect, you can really go down the hill from it, because if the market changes, you can lose everything. I was here when the market went down. I wasn't really in the real estate so much, like, with investments, but I've seen people that lost their properties. I've seen people that were leveraging their money. They start buying like, one house, then the market went up a bit, so then they refinance it. They bought another one with like, 15%, 20%. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I own like 5, properties. But then they couldn't pay them off, and they lost it. and then your credit is going,
So
you know.
let's talk about, because I understand, listening to this, what I appreciate is that you hit a sort of a fork in the road where what you were doing in real estate wasn't working anymore. So you have to make a decision, I guess, if you're going to stay with it or if you're going to do something else, if you're going to stick with some of the other businesses that you had going. But the opportunity presented itself in a different way, in sort of a different market in the shift. Still has its own challenges, obviously, to what you do, but you kept going, and it didn't cause you to quit. I think a lot of people today, they give up and they quit. So two things. Number one, a lot of people don't start. They don't take the risk that you took. Number two, they quit when it gets hard. You continued on. So you're seeing a lot of ups and downs, obviously, the marketplace in real estate anyway. So now you're in a completely different market doing a completely different thing. Also, today, so you experienced all of that previous in some of the market shift. Today, I know that we're experiencing some of the same stuff. So let me just ask you this. What are some of the personal things that you were able to do, just that on your own kind of grit, integrity, character that keeps you pushing forward? Like, what is the balance or the tension in your head to go, you know what, it's not worth it, I'll just go get a 9 to 5, versus, no, I'm going to keep pushing through.
Yes.
So if somebody's struggling with that today, is there some sort of motivation that you can give them in that?
Sure. It's funny, the 9 to 5. My mom used to tell me, like, maybe you'll get a 9 to 5, make some decent income and just live life. I'm like, well, that's not me. That's not who I am. I think that there are specific characteristics that people need to have in order to have that mentality of, like, want to be an entrepreneur, want to be a businessman, want to be self managed. And that's like the first step. Like, it have to be you, because some people, I have a good friend that he own a really big hedge fund, and now he's working for a pretty large bank, and he's way happier. He's like stress-free. He was under a lot of stress. Now, some people, they need that stress in their life. Like,
Right, yeah.
You cannot be a business person and not have stress. Like, it's not going to happen. But to me also personally, I think the fact that, I grew up doing sports and I was doing competitive sports and in different fields. I mean, volleyball was one of the main things, but I did track and field. I did a lot of, sport, and that kind of like mentality that you have to push yourself, because in sports, you get injured, you still need to get up the next day, go to practice. You gotta, like, there are no really days off in a way if you're doing it like professionally. You have to push yourself. I'm still going to the gym, like, 5 times a week. If my wife allowed it, I'll go 6. so it's like and it's like, you work the whole day, you're tired, you still go to the gym. So to me, it's like, that's the set of mind, like, no days off, just to keep push yourself. You need to see the end result, like you're making it, because you're going to have always the ups and downs. And then I think if you always look at the end and you see yourself succeeding, so that's what should make you push, Now, a big part of it is to be, you don't want to be stubborn about, like, doing something no matter what. Like, you have to be smart about it, like, you have to be open for a change. So there is a difference between change and quitting. Some people said that if I'm making a change, in a way it's quitting, but it's not. It's like, it's an adjustment. And for us, for example, even now, when we started with the Airbnb, again, we're in Florida, so we started in East Hollywood. We did not have a lot of competition back then. Like, we just bought more and more houses, and we were doing very well. And then a lot of people start buying there because they saw that there is a, business growing. And when that started happening, we're like, okay, we are pretty saturated now. What's next? So even though you're in the same field, there was a complete full adjustment to what's next. We stay with the vacation rental investments, but now we're like, okay, what other market we can go to? And then we started with doing the large homes. Basically, we're doing like a kind of like resort style, full amenitized homes. Nobody did it when we started. Like there was no homes here in the area that did something like that. It was a whole risk in a way. I mean, it's a risk that worked out. Now it's an educated risk because it's not just throwing money and say, let's see if it's working. You're buying a property at the end, right? A property, it's worth money. So the first property, we were really going safe in a way that it was like a good deal, meaning if it's not going to work, we can sell the house. We're not losing. So we took the risk, to add amenities. You're talking about like $150,000 just on the outside. So it's a lot of money to risk in a way. And from that, that concept started growing. So now we're doing this, but even the area that we've been doing it, now the city start changing regulations. So again, you need to adjust. So it's always like, what's next? And I think if you want to be successful, in a way, you're focusing on what you're doing, but at the end, you always need to focus on what's next as well, and not just say, okay, that's what I'll do for the rest. Unless you're like Amazon or I don't know, like, they're doing the same thing, but they are developing, of course, as well.
Well, yeah, and it's innovating. And I think the key thing that you said, I think the baseline of that, the foundation is that you make personal decisions about pushing through. You're very disciplined. And so, like, if you don't feel like going to the gym, but you go. The hardest thing to lift in the gym, they say that the thing that weighs the most is the front door. To get in the front door, to get yourself to push yourself to get in there. And then, you said, I always say it this way, the hardest person you'll ever lead is leading yourself, because no one is going to push you. Nobody's going to make you. You have to be able to do it for yourself. And so seeing you face these challenges, real estate is difficult anyway. But then just what you said, you take all these variables. So what the city says, ordinances, there's all these different rules, regulations that are constantly changing. The marketplace, the economy, constantly changing. The needs, the wants of people, styles, all these things are constantly changing. And so I love that, to encourage people just to have the grit and the determination to lead themselves well, to be able to do it. And yeah, if you don't, the 9 to 5, some people are happier with that because there's a lot of pressure. People think, oh, if I just worked for myself, it would be so easy. But there's a lot that comes with that. It's not the same. But in all the challenges, man, you guys have some beautiful properties. I mean, I've saw pictures and video of what you guys offer. I mean, $150 million worth of investment properties is, and we're not talking just like little Airbnb homes or something. Like, we're talking some really incredible properties. So I know it's got to be fun doing what you do. I mean, you're in some beautiful homes.
It's definitely fun.
What's like a typical, like, what's the fun stuff? Like, what's the bullet point responsibilities of what you do? I know there's a lot of business side, and you're crunching numbers, and you're really watching some of those aspects that we understand come with the business side.
Yeah.
What's the fun side of it? Like, what do you just love that gets you out of bed? You're like, I can't wait to do this again today.
Like, if the market is super slow and you don't have a lot of properties that are interesting, let's say, to even look at, so it's like, okay, what's my motivation? Like, what's next? Which is, again, always like, need to invent yourself for the same thing. We got into, so I'm in South Florida, which is like, Miami area. And we also got into Tampa area. So when we got into a new area, that was very exciting. Now you're going to a whole different city that in a way it's in Florida, but you don't know. I mean, from like visiting, but you don't really know the city. And now you're going to a new city. You're starting to look at different properties, different price points. And you're like, it's exciting. You meet a lot of different people. You tell them who you are. And at the beginning, I was very eager to say, oh, I represent like an investment company. Now it's like, you need to be careful, because now a lot of people like, oh, you're Airbnb, we don't want it here. So you also need to look into that. A part of like the change was like that now we cannot, we're being very careful with buying properties that the neighbors are very close, because we always want to be in good terms with them.
Yeah.
But the excitement part is to really do the A to Z. And when you get into a property, you have to have a vision, because I can tell you that none of the homes that we're buying are ready to go. None of them. You have to see how to add rooms. And then if you're adding rooms, you also need to think about the resale value, because, closet space, if you're selling a $2 million property later on the way, people want to have a big closet in their room. And for us, there is no reason for a big closet for Airbnb. So now it's just like, it's like a, chess like moves that like you have to think about so many different variables. And to me, that's exciting.
So you enjoy that process of sort of taking something as it is and then envisioning it and then recreating it into...
Right, like even the amenities, we're doing it ourselves. We don't have an architect that is drawing everything. It's like by now we're doing it. So it's like we're taking the property, we're saying, okay, here let's do a synthetic grass, soccer, here we're going to do volleyball, here we're going to do pickleball, basketball, the playground for the kids, how everything will merge. It's like we're doing all the thought behind it, the thought process. So basically the most exciting thing is to really see how it started and where the house ends up being after it's fully furnished. And then when you get the first reservation that you see like, oh, it's working.
Yeah.
It's always exciting because you also have different investors,
Sure.
So every time you see a new investor, like excited about the videos we send them, like, because we're sharing the process.
Yeah.
And they see how it's coming along, like the vision. I think that's like the most exciting thing. And that's what really gets you going. And I want to take a step back, because you said before, like really like kind of like what's get you going. And then some people get discouraged. I think that a big part of it is also not to be shy about having a mentor. I'm sure that you as a pastor, the congregation, they come to you sometimes for advice. They need somebody. And I think that there are a lot of people that they feel that, oh, I've been doing it for like 7 years. I don't need anybody. In a way, I'll do it myself. Because people don't like to get criticism. And I think that that's something very important at any age. Yeah. I'm 41 now, and don't be shy about, having a mentor, or surround yourself with the people you want to be. Where you imagine yourself, you want those people around you. And that's super important. And that's a part of, because it's coming to where you ask me, like, what's getting you excited? I think to have those people, when you have meetings with the correct people and you set goals of, for example, to the gym, I can go every day, but to me, I know for social media, I know what I need to do. But if I am the one doing it myself, sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to do the video today. I'm not going to do the upload today. And that's something that I think if you have the right people around you, so they will tell you like, hey, where's the video?
Yeah.
It's going to get you going to the same goal.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important. It's making you excited when you wake up.
Well, in all that you said, and I love it because there's a common thread there. You mentioned people, and in your line of work, people, and I think this is the big picture for most of us. I spend a lot of time with people helping shape their thought process. People would look at what you do, your career, and they go, man, he's in real estate. He's managing some really beautiful, some investing, some properties. He's investing in properties that could be something beautiful. He's envisioning, he's creating, all of these different things. But ultimately, you're really serving people. Number one, you have investors that you have to serve, people. You have clients that are looking for these properties, and you serve those people. You're working with those who are helping transform these properties. It's people. You're looking for mentors in your life that help encourage you, strengthen you, lead you, guide you, all of these things, grow you. So again, it's people. So I think for all of us understanding that the marketplace, business, life, it all comes down to people. And so I know that there's struggles with some of those people. I know there's tension. I know there's problems. I know everything that comes with people. People are messy. But I love your outlook on understanding and valuing people. Can you just share maybe some insights on just your approach, just quickly, just something that you feel like helps you navigate all of those different personalities that you have to contend with? So how do you manage that? The investor, the construction crew, the people who's helping you dream, the clients that you work with that are super picky. You can't, please anybody. So, how do you navigate all that with people?
Sure. So I am, first of all, obviously each person is different. Like, I'm not saying that it's the right way, but I'm like a sponge. I am very good in absorbing a lot of stuff. And someone can also be on let's say the bad side. If something is not working smoothly, they can be very, loud and aggressive, let's say, speaking. And it's okay. Like, I'm okay with that because I get it. I get sometimes the frustration. And to me, I'm really okay with absorbing it because I accept it in a way. Now, I'm not letting people push me. There is a difference between, be pushed and just understand that sometimes people need to vent out.
Sure.
And I think that when I'm like that, so people feel very comfortable with me. And I'm very patient. And I think patient is like, without patience, nothing would have happened, like, it's been such a long journey, and the journey is just, I feel like I'm not even halfway, and I think that just the patient to know that, each person is different, and I'm like adjust to his characteristics in a way that he feels comfortable with you. And also know your stuff. I mean, at the end, if you're very educated about what you're doing, so you can, I can be with a person that is a guest that, let's say he's paying $100 a night and he wants something done and he wants it now. And I can talk to him and that's fine. And then I can talk to someone who had like $1 billion, company, and I can talk to his level in a way. I can adjust my vocabulary. I can, right. I know my stuff. And I think that's like really important when you talk to so many different people, to know how to adjust your level of conversation to them.
Awesome.
I've been before, when I wasn't, I remember one time a guy came to me and he's like, can you get me $500 million loan? Like, literally, that was like, he asked me that for it was a big project. And I never say no. I said, let me check. And I found someone who has the money, and I set up the meeting. And I was very young, I didn't know much, but I knew people.
Yeah.
And I set the meeting. I'm there myself, and they're talking, and I feel like, oh, the meeting is going great, And then they finish the meeting, and the guy that has the money, he's representative. He tells me like, that other guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I thought it's going good, Now, if I'll be in that meeting today, I will know right away to read the cards, Yeah. I will know why it's not good. So basically, I just feel like people have to be ready for who they're talking to in a way,
Well, that's it. I mean, everything you just said there, personal boundaries. So you set some of what you will or won't do, what you'll accept or you won't accept. I think that's important because some people feel like they just have to be, they have to bow to everything. And so people get wrapped up in things and they get taken advantage of, and you just get exhausted. So I love that, your personal boundaries. I love what you said about the adaptability, being able to adapt there. I think that's really incredibly important, to be able to know who you're talking to be able to know your audience, and to be able to serve them in the way that it's best that they need to be served. And then, of course, just knowing your stuff. I think it's to really, if whatever you're doing out there, whatever industry you're in, whatever part of the marketplace that you serve, I mean, really be educated, continue to grow. And I love your just transparency and vulnerability to be able to say, I thought I knew this at this point of my career, but then I learned after the fact.
Yes,
I didn't have it figured out, and today that you would know it differently. So I think that's incredible. Man, I love what you're doing. For those of you who are watching the podcast, I know some of you are listening, but those of you who are watching, you have seen some of the beautiful properties that they have in their portfolio, some things that are available. And so I just want you to tell people, how can they connect with you? How can they follow you, see what you're doing, or better yet, how can they take advantage of your services?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. So I have, and I leave some links, later, but basically my personal IG is Orbach Realty. So it's my last name, Realty. That's just my personal IG for real estate side. And then we have the company Facebook and Instagram, which is DesignedVR Realty investment. So that's pretty much it. And it was really a pleasure. Like I love speaking with you, and it's really great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love the journey. Man, I'm encouraged today, having talked to you. We align so much. There's so many things that you said that if you were to go back and listen to the backlog of this podcast, you would hear many of the things communicated that you talked about today. So I really love what you're doing. And all of his links, they're in the show notes. You can go. I would love for you to connect with him, follow his journey, learn from what he's doing. They're doing a great job, doing an amazing work. And I want to say thank you for being a part of the Mind.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Honored to have you today. We wish you the best.
Well, thank you for joining me today for the Mind Your Business podcast. If this added value to your life, will you do me a favor? Like, subscribe, share this with others, leave us a review. I want to add as much value to as many people as possible. So go mind your business, and we'll see you on the next one.